Special meeting of the Eastpointe City Council on Wednesday, February the 20th at 6 p.m. Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Here.
Lucido?
Here.
Kleinfeld?
Here.
Owens?
Here.
Pixley?
Here. I would need a motion, please, to approve the agenda.
So moved. Support.
Moved and support. Please call the roll.
Let's see. Kleinfeld?
Yes.
DeMonico?
Yes.
Lucido?
Yes.
Owens?
Yes.
Pixley?
Yes. And our next item is the hearing of the public. Mr. Jakubiec, did you have anything to say? All right, the hearing of the public is closed, and so we'll move into a discussion of the staffing plan and budget.
Honorable Council, I was requested to create an organizational chart and also to identify the pay scales. So what I have included in your packet is an ideal staffing plan for the Office of City Manager on January 1st, 2020. Hopefully it could be earlier than that. But what you're seeing here is a new position, and that would be the position of Personnel Director, in addition to the Assistant City Manager, Deputy Clerk, and the Management Supervisor, as well as the two clerical assistants that we have. In terms of actual pay scale, if you look on the next page, it's the non-union grade scale. And through a classification study, the Personnel Director position fit in at a grade 8, which is between $74,207 and $101,294. Now, I'd like to say that that is a pay range. It doesn't necessarily mean that if a person is hired, they're going to get paid $101,000. And I'll give you a good example. As you know, we were advertising for a record supervisor IT specialist. That is a grade 6 with a pay range between $53,356 and $72,831. An offer was extended to the most qualified candidate for $55,000 from the beginning. So when you have a pay range like that, when you make an offer, it's based on experience and education. So those are the two factors that I take into consideration when making an offer. Now, why do we need a personnel director? This city does have 157 full-time equivalent employees according to the current budget, and during my brief tenure here, it seemed like every week I'm observing things that just aren't being done. And they're not being done because, in my opinion, we just don't have anyone with enough time to dedicate to doing things that should be done on a regular basis. And one good example was the background checks for all employees that we hire. I assumed that it had been done, but getting into a discussion about a hiring procedure with one of the assistants in the office, discovered it wasn't. We don't have a written checklist, if you will, of what to do for a pre-hire checklist. I just developed an onboarding checklist and ran through that personally with our deputy finance director. He was the guinea pig. So there's administrative things in terms of policies and procedures that we just don't have established. We do have, for example, several policies that are in effect: the personnel rules and regulations, the administrative rules and regulations, the administrative orders. But looking at the personnel rules and regulations, I think it was typed on a typewriter. So that begs the question, when was the last time that was actually reviewed? No one has actually had the time. Maybe when something comes up and it becomes a salient issue, we'll look at that one little section, but we haven't really done a thorough review. Job descriptions. Don't know when the last time was those were reviewed on a regular basis. My guess is that they are reviewed at the time that we are actually looking to hire someone into a position. And speaking of hiring, I don't know if you're aware or not, but I'm going to count the Director of Public Safety position in this. So as of September 30th, 2018, there were 18 administrative or non-union positions in the city. If I'm lucky, 3 years from now, 4 of those people will be in those positions. So you're looking at a turnover in administration of almost 75% of our current administration and all that institutional knowledge. Also, in the police department, We have about 4 police officers that we anticipate retiring by year end. We have 2 vacancies, so that's 6 vacancies. We've got another 3 retiring the following year, so that is 9. I believe that we are a couple officers short of where we need to be in terms of properly deploying these special assignments that the director keeps talking about. So we're probably looking on hiring between 11 and 13 police officers between now and November 30th, 2020. So there's a lot of activity just on a day-to-day basis. We are not maintaining active eligibility lists for promotional positions within the police department. Don't know when the last time was we had that. We're getting that process started in order to relieve my office of that stress, if you will, because of everything that's going on. Director Rohib has volunteered to help organize that for us. So he's picking up a duty that rightly shouldn't be within his office. We do not have a centralized personnel function. For example, at the library, they create their own tests, they interview their own people. I know they don't do background checks, and they do the hiring. There's nothing really done within this office. But is a library director and the staff in the library fully knowledgeable of all the rules and requirements that you have to go through when you're selecting and hiring personnel, from a liability standpoint at least? Obviously, we will be getting into collective bargaining, so that will take some time away from the city manager to deal with some of these issues. We do have internal control issues. The personnel functions and the onboarding functions are decentralized amongst 3 employees right now in the city, and in some cases we have very poor internal controls. For example, we can have one person fully responsible for creating employees in the system, setting their pay rates, paying the employees. So that sort of needs to be distributed for internal control purposes. Benefits are distributed amongst various employees. You don't have one person to go to for a benefit. I remember when I was brought on, well, I had to go to one person for this, then I was shipped off to another person for this, then I was shipped off to a third person for this. There should be one person. We don't even have an outgoing or an offboarding process to find out, well, if people are leaving, why are they leaving? You know, what was good, what was bad. Risk management, training. The lack of training from a risk management standpoint, from a personnel labor relations standpoint, is basically non-existent in the city. There is no one that is ultimately responsible for keeping a list and maintaining, well, who needs what and when. Is there anyone that's actually watching what's out there to offer these opportunities? There's actually a lot of free seminars out there. Staff will be taking advantage, several staff members will be taking advantage of several of those tomorrow. I just happened to come across those. I, as personnel director, as one of my jobs, cannot really truly dedicate all of my time to that because I have responsibilities as a clerk and I have responsibilities as a manager. And I know that there are certain responsibilities and certain duties that I am not fulfilling to the extent that I believe I should be. I need to gear myself more in towards a management role, identifying performance measures, being able to do evaluations of employee performance, being able to do evaluations of city services that we offer.
I'd like to interject, and also, we're not going to have a lot of time before people start showing up. Why is it sorry. It would seem to me that you would delegate roles like making sure that employees are trained to directors within their department. Like I would think who's running DPW would make sure everyone has their certifications, and same thing with police and fire. I don't think one person has to do that for every employee in the city. And actually, I would expect a department head to be more knowledgeable about what their employees need and how to stay on top of it. In regards to onboarding and stuff, I understand that you think it should all be one person, but it's not, I don't think it's that you have to do everything. I just don't see it that way. And I know that you've talked about this a lot in different meetings and settings and wrote about it in your memos. I don't think we need a personnel director right now. I think I would rather see you take a year before trying to split up the responsibilities that traditionally fell to the city manager. That's how I feel on that. So
I agree a great deal with Michael. When we developed the role of the Director of Public Safety, it was with the idea that that person would assume all the administrative functions of both of those departments, which would include planning for their education and so forth and succession, and report back to the administrator. But we felt that they should have that degree of responsibility for that position. Likewise, the library's only got a small staff, and she should be, and if she does not, and I don't want to say she because I read that she's going to be retiring, so whoever takes her place should be instructed in different things related to all of that. In DPW, as I recall, when we put Carol over there in that position, or opened it up so that Carol Apley could take the administrative thing, that was, we were told that was going to be her responsibility to take over the administrative things and work directly with the city manager related to that.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about it also right now, because like Michael said, you have only been in the position for about 6 months. And also, I would really like to see maybe a more detailed description of what the duties of all of these people, our present employees have, and then all of the duties that our new employees would have under your new recommendations. This is very vague on, you know, you're explaining everything really quick, but you're talking about eliminating some clerical positions and then having the personnel director, am I right?
One clerical position.
One clerical
One
position.
clerical position.
Then you also mentioned things like payroll and things like that, but I thought we were able to combine a lot of those in finance with the payroll by changing the positions over there already, because you mentioned that.
That's not going anyplace yet.
Okay.
And I don't understand the management supervisor, because you have a personnel director and then a management supervisor. Is that to take the role of the assistant city
I
manager?
think that's Joe Marucci.
That's Mr. Marucci. So he deals with a lot of economic development type issues. He's dealing with the Parks and Recreation, CDBG, essentially anything that I can't devote time to, he's been filling in the gaps there. Same thing with Mr. Altimus. Mr. Altimus can't devote time because he's either being deputy clerk or purchasing agent, so Mr. Marucci is picking up the
Well, we haven't heard from the two of you, but we don't, the school board is also arriving, so, but we need to hear from you.
I guess I'll keep it as short as possible. I thought one role of the personnel director would be some sort of HR sort of thing also, and you haven't talked about that at all. Besides that, I guess, I don't know if I agree or disagree with everything else the other three were saying, but I'd
Excuse
like
me,
to
if I could
see.
get clarification for HR, do you mean things like employee relations, the ability to set up employee assistance programs, being a sounding board for employees?
Yeah, the
That's-
sounding
that's
board
included.
especially because it just was an uncomfortable setup where everyone had to go to the boss
Yeah. I
to
feel,
talk about anything.
I feel
you
strange
could-
about that also, and that's what the personnel director would be doing as well.
Okay,
I thought I had provided this earlier, which was the job description for personnel director. I probably should have redistributed that.
okay, yeah, I may have missed that then, sorry.
And my position isn't no forever, but I don't feel comfortable right now partitioning those responsibilities from the city manager. And I also think it's worth looking at the ability to delegate to department heads, because they can perform those administrative functions, at least some of them, I think. And in addition to the job description, I'd want to see the, was it called an assessment to determine the pay range or grade?
Yes, it was
put it at
a
grade 8?
classification, yes.
I'd like to see that, because I also thought for a city our size, I thought 8 was a little high, personally. That's all I have, I think.
So I think, oh, I'm sorry, Monique, we need to hear from you, but then we're gonna have to close the meeting because people are arriving.
Okay. So my whole idea was, well, I get the feedback from what you guys are saying, like you just started the position, knowing the roles that you were gonna have, and then now you get the position and you saying it's too much. And I understand when it's too much, but I think what we're trying to say collectively is we want you to try to at least adjust to it and see, and then come back to us with these ideas and things like that, because it can get overwhelming, but I think we pay you very well and for what you do. But at the same time, I do think we should have a personnel director, but we first want to see how, once you get comfortable with the role, and because it's like we're opening up since you've been hired, we've been trying to hire more people to take some of your roles away from you, and it's costing us more money, to me.
And I think we need to look at the total amount of salaries that we're gonna be paying. So this is a broad scope, and I think we need to spend a great deal of time on it, but we don't have the time tonight to do it. So my suggestion is to establish a work session at some time that would be maybe like a 2-hour meeting that we could review it, because I think what Mr. Sabota is asking us to do is kind of to approve his outline and what he wants to do so that he can channel that into the 2020-21 or 19-20 budget, which they're in the process of doing right now.
Right, and also, because, you even mentioned like changes to the police department and things like that, and I feel like we definitely need a lot more time to have this discussion.
Right. Well, I think I get the sense of counsel, and I hear you, that you feel that I'm premature in my assessment of the personnel needs of the city at this time. I will take that criticism, and I will wait for another 6 months and then come to you in the middle of next fiscal year. So I will not even include this particular position in the budget for a full year, because obviously we're not going to be getting there until at the earliest of the middle of next fiscal year.
I think I don't think we're telling you no. I think what we're saying is we need to see a broad spectrum, because you may be reducing the total figure that we're spending on salary, and that's what we look at as the bottom line, by making a lot of changes.
Mhm.
So that may be something that we need to look at, and I think that's why if we had a work session, then we might come to a different conclusion.
And maybe even like send out a more detailed, who we have now, what their pay ranges are, like listed for each individual, and then who you're hiring in the plan of pay ranges, or how you're waiting to set it up, for us to even look at and review before we have the meeting. Just so we can get that visual and we have those numbers right in front of us, because, even though you have on, you gave us a sheet with, everyone's pay range on here,
But we don't have the Director of Public Works, and I understand
right,
he's
you were
about to
mentioning
go
other
into the
departments
assessment
Right.
and things like that.
and the fire chief and the chief of police and everything, so.
Right.
Those are all figures that we would need to see, but the bottom line is the bottom line, because your responsibility is to manage it and come up with your decision and how you want it organized. But our responsibility is to give you the approval to do it. So, but we're not gonna do that until we have a better picture of what you're doing.
And,
Am I saying that right?
Sorry.
No, I think so. I think that's good. I think, like I said, I think we just want more information right now
Okay.
before we can make an actual, for sure decision on it.
I think before I came on, Steve Duchesne didn't have a supervisor, and then he added one, to my knowledge, so to help the city manager. So you have that help with Joe.
Right, which
So that-
believe me, I am using.
So, you know what I'm saying? So you do have the resources that a lot of city managers that didn't have before Steve Duchesne came here. So now you have, and then you have an assistant manager, so it's 3 of you guys. So I'm looking at your Joe as your helping hand,
And which she, believe me, is being
which
utilized.
a lot of city managers didn't have before.
Right.
And then we had more employees as well. So we got less employees, then you got a supervisor. So that's what I'm saying. You have those resources now.
We also
So-
went a long time with just Randy Altemus and no city manager running the city, so.
Right.
Yeah.
And- Yeah, and I was, just one very quick thing I was gonna mention, because if I'm not mistaken, our assistant city manager is retiring very
Yes, he has
shortly,
announced,
and we
so
could have someone possibly fill that in and not have the position
I'm
we
actually
didn't have.
looking that I need to hire someone more from a deputy clerk standpoint. I believe I have shared with you, I have been unsuccessful in actually establishing the login credentials for me to even get myself certified as an election administrator. And
Okay.
at this point in time, I don't have the time to do that. So I need to make sure that I hire a deputy city clerk who is fully trained and able to proceed with the upcoming election in November. So I'm really behind the 8 ball on that one.
So I would, maybe you can hire someone on a part-time basis. Like Linda, why is that?
Well, I
She
need,
was a clerk.
I need an election administrator certified.
She did, I think she did that.
But you lose your certification.
Okay.
So
All right.
that's what the
Anyway, we
concern
need
is.
to close this meeting and move on. So I would entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn?
Support.
Please
Where's
call
my
the
list?
roll.
Okay, it would be DeMonico,
Yes.
Kleinfeld,
Yes.
Owens,
Yes.
Pixley,
Yes.
Lucido.
Yes.
Come on in, everybody.